Using music, international and uncategorizable, to lift you up. So tune in Sunday evenings at 6 for the Zombie Jamboree.
Oh, it's the red button. Hello. Sorry, Ted. It's live radio, and it's the first time I've done live radio in the afternoon in what since only 1995. So, Ted Warren, good to see you. Thank you for joining us in the CFRU Frank Ryan Studios. How you doing, sir?
I'm very well, Roberto. It's great to see you and great to talk to you and great to hear you now.
Great to be able to hear me through the headphones. Yeah, this is your first time, too, at the Frank Ryan Studios recording for us. I think that's long overdue, and thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so pleased to be here. I was saying in my social media posts about this, I love radio. Radio is such a part of my upbringing and my enjoyment of music, my discovery of music. So it's great to be part of something like this. I'm so pleased to be here.
Well, I want to talk to you a bit about Drum Stories because when doing research for it, I found out that these pieces were, well, first of all, like that they're solo works, which is like, what's that going to sound like? I like a complete percussion album of solo works, and then that these were actually improvised pieces too that have come. Can you tell us a bit about that, like the making of this your latest album?
Sure. I actually played a fair amount of soul gigs over the years. Obviously, not as many as you would playing with a band, which is most of what I do. But I did do it over the years, but never really recorded it. And then a very good friend of mine who lives out in the Durham region said, "Why don't you just come over to my place? I'll just you'll set up. We'll just record it. We'll do a day of that and see what comes out of it." And it was really fun. We just it was just sort of one long day, and I just kept trying things. And if I'd done something that sounded a certain way, I tried to do something that sounded a different way. And I think even when I listen back to it now, there is sort of a logic to it and some sort of journey. Hopefully, you're going on. That's where the title came from.
Yeah, well, there's 17 tracks, so I imagine that. Like you called it down from about, like when you're improvising, there must have been 50 or 100 or 200 ideas floating around there that you narrowed it down to for this, right? Or like how does it work to improvise a piece? Because you didn't just improvise and hit record. Like did these evolve out of something, or did you improvise and just record these pieces?
Yeah, the latter is what
happened.
Wow. Yeah. No, and it's really fun. I think it's something that I would recommend for any instrumentalist or vocalist even is to do something solo, because you're the one in control of the narrative always. And especially as drummers, we're often, we're sort of on the lookout for any problems there might be, or we're trying to encourage people or help their narrative. But it was fun to just be developing my own stories just on my own, and I would recommend it to anybody. It's especially for us instruments who tend to accompany. It's one thing to be a singer-songwriter. During COVID, they always had all these things where you could play on your own. But if you're a singer-songwriter, that's what you do at every open mic night ever, right? But if you play trombone, what are you going to do if you're playing solo? So it's a good challenge, and it's a different thing than I normally do, and that's the other thing I was trying to make. I didn't want it to be just an album of me playing a beat for an hour.
No, but also like the singularity of it, because when you perform these tracks, they're always going to be a little different. They're not going to be exactly the same as the last one. So like every time you hear like The Gathering or Suspension or something, it's not going to be the same way as you did it the last time necessarily. There's going to be, depending on the air quality or your mood or how you're doing it. Yeah, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the space you're in and the sound of that space and the mood you're in. I mean, not to create any comparisons with him as a musician, but I was thinking of those of Keith Jarrett solo records where he's just sort of going on what's happening, and then one idea leads to another, hopefully, and when you hear it back, hopefully it has this cohesion and takes you on some sort of journey. We're in a funny era with drums, online. We either hear people doing ridiculous things that are really hard to do, which is okay, sort of with no context to them, or we hear somebody playing along to an Eagles record. And there's other things we can do.
Right.
You know, we can create our own sort of little melodies and that sort of thing on this instrument. You know?
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah. What do you have for us next? I want to put you back to work here.
Okay. This one I'm going to call Blues for Roberto.
Oh, shucks. Take it away.
Thank you.
You are joining us in the Frank Ryan Studios at CFRU for a live in-studio session with Mr. Ted Warren, whose latest album of solo works, Drum Stories, is out now. You've been drumming for, like about 50 years?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm aging you. But first teacher?
Yeah, this is a good story. I'm from Regina, Saskatchewan, and there's a hilarious person, a real character in Regina named Don Young, who's still around, who's still teaching.
God bless him.
Oh yeah, and he was, he's a hilarious dude. I always have a great time when I see him. I usually see him when I'm in Regina, and yeah, I got a lot from him. I stayed with him for about 5 years. He just had he's sort of a guy who learned to play in that region and just sort of kept on doing it. So played all the country gigs, played at the Buffalo Days with Pemmican Pearl and stuff like that, so and I got a lot from him, and it's always still great to see Don. He's like I said, he's a real character.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to have a drum lesson with you during COVID, and we had our masks on and went to your studio space and did it. And I was wondering if you might give me a little one over here again, like while we're here. I've been told that bossa nova is kind of one of the trickiest beats to do. And I'm telling a professional drummer, so they'll go, no, it's easy. I know I can do bossa nova. But is there truth to that? Is bossa nova a tough one to pick up? And how would you recommend somebody approach it?
Yeah, that is a tough one because, and I think it's because the coordination that it calls for is sort of different than a lot of other beats, because the big thing that's tricky is between the things you're doing with your cross stick, this, and your bass drum, which is sort of like a heartbeat. So it's really, that's the crux of it, is trying to, get this is a tricky one. But you can also leave the bass drum out and just play that and eighth notes with your hi-hat. That works too. I think the thing about drums, because it's got this thing that comes from the one-man band, and you think you should be able to handle, be able to cover everything, is that a lot of beats, you don't have to use all four limbs. It's cool if you can, but you can do a lot with just your hands. You were talking, because you were talking about Mo Tucker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she played standing up and did not use her feet at all. And it gave what she did this very primitive sort of, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all, this sort of elemental sort of thing, which was really cool and worked very well, I think, for the Velvet Underground.
She played the bass drum. She put it on its side,
right? And
she played it like kettle drums, sort of like she was doing that with she hit it with mallets, like that's about as good as I can play. Like when I get on the drums, I end up going back into Mo Tucker, which is fine because that's where I live musically. Do most percussionists teach?
I think most musicians teach at this point. It's hard to just play, and I enjoy teaching. As you said, I think you said when I couldn't hear you, that I'm teaching at Laurier, and I enjoy interacting with the students, and I also do sort of one-off lessons with people too, and I never fail to learn things, and I like passing on the information. I love talking about music almost as much as I love playing it. So I mean, often in a teaching situation, that's what you're sort of trying to get across. You're trying to communicate just ways to make good sounds and do cool things for a band, and serve the music in various ways.
Mm-hmm. You started like when you were 2, like you started when you were a little kid with music. And percussion has always been an instrument that I thought people had a lot of choice. Like you can find somebody to teach you drums. I find now that it's getting harder to find places for kids to get into music or to learn an instrument and stuff. And I was in a stage band in junior high school, where you had to pick up a brass instrument or something to complement but a lot of that has disappeared. How important is it to get somebody into, to learn an instrument at a young age?
I think it depends on the instrument. You always hear about string players as they always start learning at like preschool and stuff like that. I don't know if this instrument requires as much. I mean, I played I started when I was 10, but I know the great drummer with Tower of Power, David Garibaldi, apparently he was 18 years old. He saw James Brown and said, "Oh my God, that's what I want to do with my life." And so then he just practiced like crazy. And within 6 months he was gigging, because not only was he working on it super hard and super focused, but he also sort of knew what he wanted to sound like, what the music he wanted to play. So he could get to it quickly. So I don't think there's anything physical necessarily about this instrument that you have to start it early. You know what I mean? Although I just heard an amazing Ornette Coleman record, The Empty Foxhole, which I hadn't heard.
with his son.
He's 10,
that's
right?
Yeah, he's 10 years old.
Yeah, and there's a ballad, sort of a ballady thing, and Donardo's concept on it, I was like, wow, I never would have thought of that in a million years. It's really cool. I mean, I don't know how Ornette got him to play or what he worked on or anything, but there's some really cool things he got to. You know?
Yeah.
I
can hear it in my head, like da-da-da-da-da-da, boom, 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 da-da-da, boom, boom, boom.
It's really cool. It's really cool. Very interesting playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More of that. Like that's. I would love to see more people doing that, like pulling that in, because that one was a great experience for me.
Yeah.
But it is true that the thing you can try this at home with percussion. You can get a place to practice where you're not going to drive people nuts when you're learning, but to just do everything slowly and speed up, is that the big key? Sorry, it's a closed question, but is it a closed key?
I think so. I mean, not necessarily speeding up as you're doing it, but starting slow, finding it, especially if you're playing music in tempo. Some of the things I'm playing are tempo, some of them are rubato. Most of the time when you're playing drums with people, it's going to be in some sort of pulse that's steady, hopefully. So yeah, I mean, try something at a slow pace, with along to a recording or with a metronome, then try it a little quicker. I think that's how you develop these things. Yeah, when you do practice things slow, you have time to let your mind and your body assimilate it. And actually, I mean, most experienced drummers will tell you too, slower tempos are actually harder to play because there's more space, so there's more room for error. You can't really hide in a slow tempo.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let me put you back to work with something from Drum Stories, which is out now, from Ted Warren, who's joining us here in the Frank Ryan Studios for the live in studio session Friday on CFRU Radio Griffin 93.3 FM, worldwide on cfru.ca and on our YouTube channel. Sir, take it away. Broadcasting live from the Frank Ryan Studios at the University of Guelph, Ontario in Canada on the 93.3 FM frequency. This is CFRU, the live in-studio session featuring Mr. Ted Warren, whose latest album, SoloWorks Drum Stories, is out now. And you can catch Ted at Sellers in Newell, Sunday, September 13th at 8 o'clock in Toronto. And you are planning dates out west. You're organizing a solo tour for, well, sometime in the near future?
Yes, I think I'm going to be in Winnipeg in November sometime. We're still just hammering out the details. And then Regina and Saskatoon, Calgary and Edmonton, and maybe Vancouver. It's funny to do. I this is such a tiny part of what I actually do. So it's been really fun to sort of try and sell, a solo drum recording, a solo drum performance. It's very different. As somebody said, the hang's probably good. You get along with everybody in the band, So.
Yeah, the drum hang. Now,
Yeah.
I want to know more about the drum hang. The drum hang.
Yeah.
Red leather, yellow leather. The drum hang.
Yeah.
Tell me about the drum hang.
Well, that's with a couple of friends of mine, some very good drummers. We started with Joel Haynes, who plays in the Burlington area, and Mark Marish, who's in Durham, who is where, as the geodesic dome, where I recorded my...
You recorded in a geodesic dome.
We did.
The synergies, the Buckminster-Fuller's of it must have been wonderful.
That's right. They were just all floating around. No, it was really fun. And they're dear friends of mine. And then we tend to do these things every few months, basically just because I was saying this before, we went on air, is... when we're in school, of course, we got to hang out all the time and talk about things and discuss things we liked in the instrument or people playing, and you never get a chance to do that in a professional setting unless you're on a double bill or something.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been doing that for a while, and then we've invited various guest stars, and that's always fun, and we play and we experiment. People usually bring something new they bought, whatever it is, a new cymbal or a new drum or something. And it's just really fun. It's very nerdy, for sure, but it's a lot of fun.
I smell a CFRU special with the drum hang like that. That's a must, and that's a natural one there. I would love to get a few mics set up around you guys and put that on at midnight or something if you're amenable. But we'll hash out the details.
Sure.
Afterwards. I want to go back to a drum lesson. So here's drum lesson number 2.
Okay.
Fills. All right. Teach me about fills.
Yeah. And this is interesting because this is a real thing for me. I have a few things that people who know me or have studied with me for any length of time will know. The funny thing is that I think the whole idea of something as time and something as a fill is sort of it's a sort of a misnomer. It's sort of a false bill of goods, because as soon as we're playing time, as soon as we're doing anything on this instrument, we're filling in the space. There is space being filled. And whenever we're going to say a different part of the instrument, which is usually what people talk about when they're filling, we're still keeping time. It's still a flow of ideas, So I think one thing that, and I get it, because suddenly you're doing something different physically. You're going to a different place on the instrument. So especially when you're young, that's when the time tends to suffer, or maybe you overthink it, or those sort of things. But I think if you really think of them all together, I think one thing, when you do fill, when you do play something that seems like more likely a fill, is you're going to be more cognizant of it, and probably you won't do it quite as much. That said, I mean, if you listen to someone like Keith Moon, he's a really good example of that idea of the flow. He's not really keeping time per se. He's not really filling per se. He's sort of doing both the whole time.
Can you give us your Keith Moon impression?
Oh, God.
I'm sorry for putting you on the spot.
It's a good idea. Like one thing you notice is often the feet are sort of a rumble. He usually didn't have a hi-hat. He usually had 2 bass drums. And so he's sort of doing normal things you would with your feet, except they're just sort of rumbling beneath everything. I'm trying to think of a particular tune.
My Generation.
Oh yeah, okay. Let's see. Sorry, working with the snare drum here. There we go. Because it's like. And then near the end, it's sort of that, I don't know.
Oh, no, that's wonderful. What about? There are people that have signature fills that are probably well known. Like this is like you'll play something and they'll say, "Oh, it's this person."
Yeah.
So can you give us some examples?
Oh, let's see.
I'm putting you on the spot here.
No. I'm trying to think of some. Let's see, fills. Well, I mean, one that Max Roach did all the time that got co-opted by rock people all the time is this one. Because you're just going down the drums to the bass drum. But he has a famous piece called For Big Sid, which was for Sid Catlett, that uses that idea. And then people did that one all the time. I'm trying to think. It's funny. I'm none of them are coming to me right now.
What about one of yours?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just trying to keep things interesting as much as I can. I think there's all stuff that people gravitate towards. But I'm not sure which one in particular is mine. Here's a good Steve Gadd one, actually, I learned recently, which everybody knows, but I never learned up until this point. This is, I think it's on Asia and things like that. It's just a 6-stroke, but the first note of it, here's getting it's really technical. It's a 6-stroke roll, but the first note of it is on your floor tom, and then the last note of it is on your small tom. And it's actually quite, because it's sort of those both the tom notes are, the right hand one is at a drum that's on your right side, and the left hand is on a drum that's really easy to hit with your left hand. It's just a really easy, comfortable one to play. Because another thing I did is I reversed it, and it's not as comfortable. So that means all the accented notes are on the snare drum, and the rest of the notes are on the toms, which is this. And that's actually a lot less physically comfortable. So, like on every instrument, right? There's always stuff that just lays well, right? Like the reason everybody goes down the drums is because it feels really good and it's easy to do.
Satisfaction.
Yeah, there's something about it that's very satisfying to it, right? So, I think there are always things like that. The thing about Ringo, right? And actually I'm the same, is he's a left-handed person playing a right-handed kit. So what it means is if you're starting things with your left hand, it's a lot more comfortable for him. And for me too, actually.
Is that why he had that sway? Like the Ringo sway whenever he was playing? He had that sort of jumping around like that.
Yeah, and sort of the fills you would play too, because it meant that if you start with your left hand, it's way easier to go up the drums than down the drums, because your left hand's always first, right? So yeah, it creates some interesting ideas, right?
There's also Clem Burke from Blondie, who modeled himself after Keith Moon, but Keith Moon looked like he never bent his wrists. He looked like what I was told is an arm drummer.
Yeah,
Clem was not. Clem used his wrist, but for Dreaming, he's got that powerhouse. And when we lost Clem Burke not too long ago, I think that was the one that everybody opened up with as a tribute to him because of that.
Yeah. He's another lefty too who played right-handed. So even when he was doing things on his hi-hat, I realized that some of that stuff, the usual thing you do when you're doing stuff like this, is you're doing it with your right hand and moving your right hand over. But for a lot of it, I think even hard glass and stuff like that, there's some of it where he's doing it and he's playing the whole thing with his left hand, leading with his left hand and moving his left hand over, which actually makes more sense because usually you're playing the snare drum with your left hand. Again, we're getting technical here, folks, but
that's fine. No, it is a collegiate radio station, right? We're here to learn. We're here to learn, so it's very apropos. Yeah. I want to hear some more drum stories right now, though, if you will oblige.
Sure.
You're listening to 93.3 FM CFRU, cfru.ca worldwide. This is Ted Warren with Drum Stories. are live at the Frank Ryan Studios at the University of Guelph. This is CFRU. You've been listening to Ted Warren and his latest works from his latest album, Drum Stories, which is out now. Hello, Ted.
Hello.
This has been wonderful. I haven't done live in a while in day, and I enjoy in live radio the hiccups and bumps and the pauses and getting everything going together, and not having to affect the radio jazz kind of like Ross Porter. I got a Ross Porter story for you.
Please, go ahead.
Okay, it's an oldie but a goodie. I think everybody's got a Ross Porter story, but Ross Porter's CBC and Jazz FM, and the classic jazz cadence at night, and the that velvety, buttery, like kind of creepy, even safe to say voice. But Ross got a bad review from a friend of mine who was a music writer at Now magazine, Toronto, and he didn't appreciate it. But what was wonderful was that he left a message on his answering machine, and it was Ross Porter. So it was like, Paul, you effing, you mother father, you cork sanker. Like, how could you do that to me? But it was in Ross Porter. It was Ross Porter swearing at him, and Ross Porter, you facker, and Father Ted. So that's my Ross Porter story.
That's amazing. And I was going to mention too. I mean the live radio thing. What you're talking about, the humanity of it, that it's not perfect, is sort of the same thing I'm doing with these improvised pieces. It's not necessarily about being the most technically gifted drummer or anything. A reason it was called Drum Stories is I'm trying to tell a story. It's going to go on some sort of journey, hopefully, and keep your interest that way. That's all I'm trying to do. And the other thing I was going to say is the other thing that's good about what you're doing here, because it seems to happen to everybody when they're on the national network, is they start saying jazz.
Yeah.
It's like you automatically start talking that way.
No, the affectations aren't there, and some people have to kind of learn to listen to something that sounds a little different, because like I don't do fade ups or fade out. I play entire tracks, and then I come on and talk, and people that, aren't you going to fade? No, I'm not going to cross fade. I don't want to, and then after a while, there's something to that, because in classical music, when you play a classical cut, you don't crossfade. No, you play the whole thing, and you treat the composition, I find, with the respect that it deserves. Here's the whole thing. You don't want to hear my voice impeding it. But there's the people that do this do it for free. And there's a metric ton of work love into doing it, because they don't make a cent.
Yeah.
And quite often they present and program themselves. They're here on their own dime. They're gonna beg to be reimbursed for parking afterwards, because there's no place to park for free at the University of Guelph, and I understand times are tough. You get to be honest. There's this, I love the sound. I love the sincerity. I love the lack of pretension in doing this. And I'm so glad you're here, and that you feel the same way. I asked you before about your first teacher. You're teaching now, like you teach privately, but you're at Wilfrid Laurier University on faculty. What, 4 years, 5 years?
Been about 4, I think.
4 years. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, how is that going? How is it going to teach in the jazz program and in this age of cuts and?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think the post-COVID thing is interesting. How it's coming to, sort of roost in universities, because you do get some people that you can tell they're just not used to dealing with anything that's not through a screen. So not all of them, but I think that can be challenging for some of the young people sometimes, and always with these situations, there's all sorts of levels of ability and, interest and motivation. So, that's always interesting too. It's been taking me a long time to try and understand how to teach people that aren't necessarily the way I was at that age, which I was a big nerd, and the only thing I wanted to do was play music. And, that causes its own problems later on. But, and there's a lot of competition for their interest, and I get that too. I grew up in Regina, Saskatchewan. There wasn't that much to do, so playing an instrument was pretty fun, and there wasn't, wasn't this thing in your pocket that, is constantly calling to you, so
Right.
it's but I think there's some real talent out there, and I'm hoping that they can find a way to do this as much as they can. The economic realities of being a professional musician are as tenuous as they've ever been.
Right.
But you always find young people who are willing to commit to it too somehow.
Yeah. I mean, if the practice is essential, like you've got to practice to get good, but we're competing with social media and such for focus.
Yeah.
And my godfather is Joseph Maccherolo from Guelph. He's a virtuoso accordionist who's a prodigy. All he ever did is play. He said, I've never had a job. All I ever did was play accordion. And he said that he would do competitions, and be adjudicated at international level. And he said when Canada went up against any Soviet nation or Cuba, we didn't stand a chance, because there you have children that don't have television and whatnot, like blasting into every orifice of their body all day. And they pick up a reed instrument, they'd get a clarinet, they pick up an accordion, they get a horn, and it was outstanding. By 13, 14, they were getting paying gigs. Yeah. They were in orchestra somewhere. They were ready to go out. It became an export product. A lot of people that emigrated from the former Soviet Union have made their way in other walks of life, because they just had that solid foundation of they had the focus, they put the practice in, and there you go. And I really want to see that come in for a lot of reasons. Like I think that those skills benefit you elsewhere in life. They bleed into everything else that you do and in creation. Yeah.
I think so. I think I've realized over time that being sort of dedicated to anything in your life, I think, just gives you a focus and a way to get outside of yourself at times, which has been certainly beneficial to me. Again, sometimes you can go too far, and I think most of us who are lifers got to that point too. I sometimes realized at one point, okay, I'm sort of a dumb musician. I should really learn about what the rest of the world knows about. And that's been fun too, though, that I really do enjoy learning, and I'm learning about all sorts of things now. And but I think it was the self-learning mainly of playing that really ignited all that. I didn't like school very much, like public school and high school, that much. But when I was in the basement playing the drums, I had my own little world, and I was sort of, at least when I was practicing, it was just me, and developing it that way, and it was really fun. It still is fun.
That's great. No, that's wonderful. It sounds like it's fun when you play. I hear the fun in it, and I think that's wonderful. And that's what I'm going to get you doing now. I think we're about 10 minutes away from the conclusion of the hour, and I'm going to throw it to you to. I just want to tell the folks too that don't have the drum stories in front of them. The track listing. I'm a sucker for great titles. So Revenge of the Onion Goggles, Tremolo Pies, Brush Breathing, and Dreams of Mr. Blackwell, The Gathering, Heather's Groove. That's out to Heather for your wife.
Yes,
that's a beautiful tribute. Lonely Metal. I dig it. And with clever titles, a lot of the times you write a piece and then you stick a name on it, and so you might have trouble remembering what it is, what you called something.
Yes.
All right. So I'm not going to ask you what you're going to play next. I'm just going to turn my mic down and leave you to it. This is CFRU 93.3 FM, live from the Frank Ryan Studios. This is Ted Warren. Ted Warren with a selection from his new album of solo works for drum stories. That's out now. Hi, Lo. You are the anti Buddy Rich. Buddy Rich had a reputation for being, well, there's the tapes where he's berating his band on the bus and telling them that he has to carry them and pay them, and he's telling them exactly what he thinks of it, and his bandmates just hit record on a cassette tape, and that went out all over the world. But a great drummer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But he was one of a kind. Absolutely.
Louis Belson, there are other guys like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Gene Krupa.
Yeah.
Of course. That's how he would also apparently go up to people and go, "Hey, who's the greatest drummer in the world?" And like to rib him, they would say like, "Oh, Gene Krupa." And they have to hold them back. And
yeah.
Oh man.
The funny thing is, I've had a chance to work with several people who have been Buddy's band, and both of them are the sweetest, most gentle, lovely people you would ever want to meet in the world. And actually, one of them too said, "This is Pat LaBarbera," said, "Well, he never did Buddy never did any of that stuff with us." But then he paused and went, "Although maybe he should have. We were young idiots." Like, that's the thing, right? But he had these bands that had never had any experience before. He sort of went trolling, the schools. So we'd get these young players who had no road experience, and so they didn't know a lot of things, and of course they would get taught them by him the hard way.
Yeah. He was like, it was about new faces for him, but then he would berate them and like, shave that stuff off your face. I don't want to get that beard off. Like, this is about new faces. That sort of thing. And but like if you put a polish on them and they went on to be, I guess it's it all depends on what you get out of it. And people are willing to suck it up and go, okay, like this person has his picadillos or he's like this, but he's a great asset and to my craft and all that sort of thing. But it's always nice to be nice.
I don't think you have to behave that way. It's interesting too, if you read about Buddy's life, he had he was like a lot of proteges. He didn't really have a childhood, and I think that affected him, unfortunately. It's like him and Mozart, all these people, they sort of got paraded around, and didn't just get to be kids, which is really unfortunate, I think. A childlike attitude is always very handy when you play the drums.
In the Boss Brass, you must have gotten a chance to meet your heroes or to meet some, other musicians that you've loved working with over the years and such. And how long have you been a member of the Boss Brass?
Well, I was what would you call me? The between Terry Clark years. So I think it was the 93 to maybe 10 years later. And then he sort of stopped the big band. And I got to meet a lot of people and a lot of people who I didn't really appreciate until we got to work with them. A really good example is the band made a record with Mel Torme 2 times. Once before I was in the band and then when I worked with him. And, for somebody of my age, I was like, okay, he's an old guy. He's on night court, all that stuff.
That's right, yeah.
But he sounded so good and just, just had such a great sense of swing, and he loved the band so much. It was funny, too, like he was always deferring to Rob in the studio, and Rob was being sort of a jerk to him sometimes, and he was in his 70s at that point. And he sounded fantastic. He would get a little tired by the end of the day, so you'd have to fix things later. But, I mean, it sort of shows you, especially when you're a vocalist, because your body is the instrument. Like, I don't think he ever took it that far out with not taking care of himself. And it showed in that there's this guy who, I think he was 72 or 73 when he recorded with us, and he sounded fantastic.
Yeah,
so
the Velvet Fog.
Oh, beautiful.
And he wrote the Christmas song.
That's right.
So he's set, and I think his son actually, his heirs sort of come out and thank you, Dad. That was a perfect gift.
Yeah, right.
We're about 3 minutes away from 1 o'clock. I want to thank you for joining us. I'm going to ask, would you mind playing us out? They'll fade us down and go into the next show. But and Ted, I hope you come back, and I hope you consider hosting Unmonitored some night at midnight. I'd love to hear like the music that inspired you or what you're listening to now and some of your new works. And that would be a hoot. And
I would love to do that. That sounds great.
Thank you, old friend. This is the CFRU live in studio session on 93.3 FM. You've enjoyed Ted Warren. His latest album, Drum Stories, is out now, and you can catch him at Cellars in Newell Sunday, September 13th at 8 o'clock in Toronto. Mr. Warren, take us home.